Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with the Greenskins in Total War Warhammer 2. We are online today with another replay from SlateX. Going to be leading the Greenskins up against the spooky Vampire Coast, and as you can see in the distance, we got good old Harkon and deck dropper spam. So you guys have seen me take a similar build to this before. We'll talk through it in just a minute here, but let's look at SlateX Greenskins first. Grimgor Ironhide leading the way. Grimgor did get a little bit of a buff in the last patch. I believe he got more melee defense or something. I don't know. He's still not the best, but he is immune to psychology, decent weapon strength, good melee attack and armor. Just kind of slow. Not the best melee defense. It's actually pretty good at 45, but not amazing. And yeah, it doesn't really bring a whole lot else to the table. It's relatively cheap, though. It's got a mix of Savage Orc Biggins, Savage Orcs. We've got the Unbreakable 8-Peak Loonies in the center. Looks like the Warlords boys as well. A huge Daka squad. Goblin Archers all across the board. Night Goblin Archers, Rusty Airs. We've also got 3 Orc Air boys, Orc Biggins in the back. Wolf Rider Archers and Spider Riders. Looks like the Mangy Marauders up in Vanguard as well. For the Vampire Coast player, we've got 4 deck droppers with handguns. These are the armor-piercing variant. We've also got Luther Harkon up in the air here. Zombies with pole arms, 5 of them, and the Tide of Skilled. We've also got a fleet captain. Aye, aye, sir, or ma'am, whatever. Invocation of Nahek, Dance Macabre. We've got Power Stone here, of course, Hornswaggle, and the Speed of Light Ghost, which gives stock and Unspottable. Seen a couple of people use this on Bloated Corpses, but yeah, mostly just memes. We've also got Depth Guard and the Black Spot as well. So already Brain Burster going down from the Orc Shaman there, doing some okay damage to the deckhands, nothing crazy, but the deck droppers are definitely going to be the bigger target here. 700 points a pop. These guys are pretty expensive. They can do quite a bit of damage, 53 total missile damage while under the effect of that extra powder. They can do pretty decent amount. Definitely a force to be considered, but SlateX staying very patient here, just allowing the Vampire Coast to approach. We'll see. Harkon should fly over and pop his Power Siphon as soon as possible on Grimgor, just to prevent him from using Wa. I always just try and do it as soon as I can in the match, just so I don't forget. But he is going to pull up in range and start potentially shooting at Grimgor. Actually, looks like he's shooting these Savage Orc Biggins, which I'm not sure this is the best use of his ammunition. I mean, yes, he will lower their physical resistance, technically, down to 15%, but he only takes out like 1 unit model at a time. I found his pistol does much better shooting at characters. So like Grimgor, for example, has no missile block chance. Granted, to fly in here and shoot at him, you'd have to weather a little bit of fire, but at the very least, the fire would be worth it if you could come in, cast the Power Siphon, again, which we didn't see that pop up on Grimgor. So he currently still has the Wa in his pocket. You can see if we put the overlay up, the Greenskin player, SlateX here, unifying all of his archers into one big line here, just content to sit back, try and outshoot, because the Vampire Coast didn't bring a lot of traditional shooting or any artillery or anything like that. He is content to just sit back and shoot, and now the deck droppers moving in. They are getting really close here. I'm not exactly sure why, but it looks like they're moving in nice and close here. Maybe their target is this Orc Shaman, potentially. They're going to try and pick him off, but they are taking a ton of damage in the meantime. All these Greenskin, bow units are just free to fire in the meantime, right up on these deck droppers, and you can see the amount of Daka that's going down here is absolutely painful. Many of the deck droppers already crumbling, and it's just a bad situation. This is a ton of value getting lost out right over top. Meanwhile, the melee engagement is going down. Grimgor pops the Wa, and honestly, the deck droppers should have been used if he pulled them back, use them to support this melee fight. The Savage Orcs, if you can get their leadership low enough, will rout to zombies if you support with the guns, but as it is, they're going to just cut through these zombies, no problem here, leaving the fleet captain a little bit isolated there. You can see her crab swinging around some boys there, but it looks like we do get some zombie summons in the back line. Going to try and go back and shut down these archers, but this huge line of archers here, again, huge mistake diving down by Harkon. Tries to finish off the Orc Shaman, which, I get that. He was pretty low, but he's going to get caught by the Skulkers, the poison. All that means that Harkon's not going to be able to get back up in the air, and he still has most of his pistol ammo left. Yeah, almost all of his pistol ammo, and he's crumbling as well. Meanwhile, the fleet captain did manage to get back here to the archers, but look who's right on station. Good old Grimgor Ironhide going to come in, start to you know, have lunch here, open up this crab a little bit and get at the nice juicy meat inside. And yeah, Grimgor is absolutely going to eat this thing for lunch, no problem. Huge weapon strength, massive armor-piercing damage and melee attack, so yeah, he takes that thing down with no problem. The vampire on top's also probably going to end up Grimgor's lunch as well, despite the fact that Grimgor probably shouldn't eat undead things. You can see the Depth Guard finally got up to get involved in the combat here, but yeah, unfortunately, they're just going to give out. Looks like the Vampire Coast player admitting defeat there, so yeah, definitely some mistakes made. I do think that this deck dropper build can be something that's really hard for the Greenskins to deal with, but I think that, well, number one, SlateX is a great player, one of the best Greenskin players out there, no question about that, and I do think that this counter build is the way to go about countering the deck dropper spam, and just in general a good way to approach countering the Vampire Coast for the Greenskins. You have a lot of return shooting, basically, is the idea here. A lot of DACA, as they say. Wolf Rider Archers, Orc Air Boys, Night Goblin Archers, you know, Rusty Airs, with a pretty solid mix of the Savage units because they have that immune to psychology. Bagans get that anti-large. The AP Loonies and Warlord's Boys also, you know, unbreakable and immune to psychology respectively, plus the Armor Sundering is always useful. Grimgor, again, immune to psychology, so very good counter build there, and you do have the 2 Spider Riders to bog down Hounds. And pretty much nothing else can catch the Air Boys, so they're going to be content to sit back and fire. If your opponent does manage to win the frontline engagement, you can just kite back with the Air Boys and the Goblin Archers and so on, and between the poison and everything else, you'll easily be able to outrun most units on the Vampire Coast roster and just shoot them down. So number one, very good counter build from SlateX. Number two, I do think the Vampire Coast player made some mistakes in both their build and the way they executed. I highlighted some of those in the battle here, but just from a purely build analysis standpoint, I really don't think you necessarily need the armor-piercing guns in this matchup, and I'll go through why you don't necessarily need the armor-piercing deck droppers. They do have a few advantages, but if we go ahead and take a look here, Coast versus Greenskins, I mean, obviously Harkon, probably going to want to take his full loadout here. Slongold, you know, probably better in some other matchups, but it's not too bad here. And everything else, again, you want to hit that Power Siphon on the Greenskin Lord as quickly as possible so that you don't get a wah in the initial phase, on the charge phase of the battle. Likewise, rather than going for the armor-piercing handgun variant, I'm going to cheap out and go for 4 of the pistol variant. They do have shorter range, they do have less missile damage as well, but, you know, most targets on the Greenskin roster are relatively low armor. Harkon himself has Hornswaggle, which lowers armor on a given target, so like if you need, and it's castable on anyone, not just characters, right? So if they do bring a key, you know, high armor unit or two, maybe they bring some Black Orcs or Grimgor himself, you can pop this Hornswaggle on them, and those non-AP missiles from the pistol variant, non-AP missiles rather from the pistol variant will do more damage in that situation. And then obviously the Hounds, or sorry, the Mobs, good option. You definitely want the Fleet Captain Lore of Vampires as well. Invocation and Dance Macabre for sure. Raise Dead, you could take it. Sometimes I like to cheap out, but it is certainly a very cost-effective spell. I'm also going to grab the Gunnery Wight, cut all his abilities, but take him on the Crab. This way he at least has extra powder, or sorry, more powder, so he can replenish the ammo of any of the deck droppers or Harkon if he needs to. He's also a relatively tanky character up on the Crab, 120 armor. He has AP himself. You know, he's got melee attack and defense. Pretty decent. Not amazing for a character, but overall solid. And yeah, he also has the armor-piercing missiles as well. So again, you've got the armor-piercing heroes here and the ability to sunder armor both with the Taunt and Hornswaggle. Both give minus 30 armor, so you really don't need the AP on the deck droppers, per se. Rather than that, you can just go a little bit wider here. I'm also going to forego the Depth Guard as well. Some people argue you should bring them here. There's definitely a case to be made there, but I actually think that the Lamprey's Revenge might be a decent option. Against that much DACA, it could be pretty tough, but I mean, these guys are definitely tanky. You know, lots of health, regeneration, 120 armor. Granted, they are relatively expensive as well, but you're definitely going to want some kind of mobility here to contest, at least against Spider Riders. You know, if you can catch the Greenskin mobility out, support with your deck droppers, and manage to finish them off, you know, away from the archer support, you can potentially win a mobility advantage, and then, you know, use your Scurvy Dogs to disrupt the Greenskin missile line, while you use your deck droppers to support the melee engagement. And I think that's one of the key mistakes that the Vampire Coast player made in this replay is that they didn't use the guns to support the melee engagement. They tried to go after the caster, I think, at first, which, you know, Lord sniping or sniping heroes definitely very important, but I would say, well, number one, you don't want to advance like that. Just sit back, play the skirmish game for as long as you can. You know, typically you'll have an advantage there. If you're really worried about the long-term skirmish game, you could cut the crabs, although that is going to negate your staying power, or lessen it at least on the ground quite a bit. Could do something like just grab a single carronade, you know, and maybe you grab just more hounds and bats or something, just to give you extra numbers, or even more zombies. Nothing wrong with that. Something like this. We almost have enough for one more zombie, so in this case I might actually come in and think about cutting something to be able to pick that up, but you get the idea. You know, you're going to want to go a little bit wider with less AP on the deck droppers. You know, definitely bring the gunnery white so that you can provide extra ammo, and just, you know, go a little bit wider, bring the mobility, and try and not throw away your deck droppers like that. So anyway, very well played to both players. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.